So in staying on the road today, we're going to talk about freshwater and being ready for summer. Then enjoying the RV life, we're going to talk about RV decals, or if you're in Canada, RV decals, and what to do when yours takes a turn for the worse. Then in the next stop, we're going to visit Allentown, Pennsylvania. Then in Shadows of the Past, we're going to hear a story about Centralia, Pennsylvania. Then in RV Envy, we're going to talk water pumps that can freeze by AirXL, the Envision line. Hey there, Smart RVers. Welcome back to the Smart RVer podcast, where we keep your wheels turning and your adventures rolling. So let's talk everything RV. Today's episode is 174. So now let's open the door and see what we have inside here. And Alexis, you're back one more time again.
You let me back in.
I know.
Yeah, I had to knock for a while though, but here I am.
Like that song. That's cheap. You can keep a knocking.
You can keep a knocking.
All right, so here we go. So, I found this pin. No, you guys can't see it out there, but from Radio Arizona RV Days. Very cool.
It's very cool.
It's got to be worth $1 million.
I would think.
We're going to have to auction it off.
Yes.
All these little trinkets we find like this that we think are really valuable, but actually they're not.
Yeah.
But we think they are.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so we got a great show planned today. We don't want to waste a bunch of your time while we sit here knick-knack and paddywhack about a pen. That's not advantageous to be an RVer.
Not quite.
All right, so we're here, and I do want to make a mention about Rodeo Life magazine. A lot of our RVers, our listeners, are into horses. Mm-hmm. And they maybe already even know about this, but Rodeo Life has this great magazine. They have an awesome website, rodeolifemagazine.com. I just thought I'd throw it in there. For some reason, I got on their emailing list. And it's pretty cool. I don't really, not into rodeos, but I like looking at it.
Yeah.
So, hey, there you go. That's my freebie for today. And then, as a reminder, if you're looking at a new RV, a used RV, and you want an extended warranty, check out Wholesale Warranties. There'll be a link in the description for the podcast where you can just click on that link or tap on it, and it'll take you right to a page where you can get a free estimate. So that's pretty awesome. Can't talk today either. It's been a long day, man.
It's been a long day. Yeah.
Normally we do these in the morning.
I know.
Now it's the afternoon.
Yeah.
And, the guy at the radio station told me I shouldn't do anything like this in the afternoon. He said morning Eric's much better.
Well,
so
we break the rules around here.
Yeah. So sorry, everybody, if today's filled with slurs and, mispronunciations. It's not that we're drunk. It's just the afternoon.
I mean.
It's been a long day. All right. So in enjoying the RV life, we're going to talk about RV decals. And so Alexis is going to take us into that. And if you are in Canada, they're called decals, but here they're called decals. So just everybody gets that. I wasn't making fun of Canadians or anything. It's just the way it is. I remember the first time I heard that. I can see it. I was in a store in San Bernardino, California. Customer said, "Do you have any decals?" Like, what is a decal?
Yeah. You were like, nickel?
You start what does that mean? And then you kind of figure it out after a while, after they slapped me a couple times.
Yeah. I said, "A."
I get it now. All right. So anyways, Alexis, what do you have to say about it?
We're going to talk about decals, eh? All right.
Putting you on the spot there?
I'm going to get canceled. All right. So today we're diving into something that might not be at the top of your to-do list, okay? We're talking about RV decals. Now, I know what you're thinking. They're just decals. Why do they really matter? Well, the answer is they do matter. They're very important because when you have faded and cracked decals, they make your RV look like poop, old and worn, and it just doesn't look good. So over time, we know that sun, rain, all these things, road grime can really take a toll on your RV's exterior. So you've probably seen it before. Your decals, now I'm saying that. Your decals get all cracked or they peel or they're just completely faded. And that doesn't look good. And with new ones, you can make your rig look just beautiful, brand new. And not only that, but it protects your RV exterior, which is super important because we are the smart RVers. We like to DIY things, so we do it ourselves. So it's not just about looks, of course. Like I said, when decals start to peel, they leave behind exposed areas, right? So you have these weak spots now on your RV, which is not good because dirt, moisture, and a lot of stuff can get in there and make it look even worse. It can damage your fiberglass, which is not good. So you want to get those replaced. And not only that, but you can personalize it to your own style. You don't have to stick with what you had before. You can do something completely new, fresh, super cool, and you make it really fun. I've seen a lot of things on the road, a lot of like custom things done. I saw one with Bigfoot, a family of Bigfoot all over it. It can be really fun, really great. So it's important to do that for the maintenance of your RV. It can also be fun and stylish, and you can have a lot of creativity there with it.
There you go. And one thing about decals too is that when they're on your RV, if they start to crack and stuff, it's better to take them off than to leave them on, because it can be much harder to get them off later on.
Yep.
Or if they start peeling, just help them along and peel it to where it stops and just kind of clean it up, know. But on fiberglass ones, sometimes it's easier to do with a fiberglass siding versus a aluminum sided one, where a little more difficult, but it's doable. But just try to stay ahead of it, and putting them on isn't a big deal. It's taking them off that's the hard part.
Yeah. So you can do it.
So just to help you out there, if you need a place to get your decals, you can go to RV Decals Direct. Now they're in Canada, so it might be, I don't know. There's one in California too, rvgraphicstore.com.
Right.
Either one I think is a good choice, and they're they're not identical. They're two different entities. So you're going to do business differently. Prices are going to be different, and they'll do custom stuff, but they do it by the year, make, and model of your RV, but it's what they have.
Exactly.
A lot of decals disappear right away. So I don't know if these guys are like designing them or they're just buying them from the factory, or not the decals, but the artwork. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But check that out. A lot less expensive than paint and a lot easier to do. And I've seen guys actually put decals over decals.
Really? That's not a good idea.
I want to do that. But,
waste of money.
Yeah, and you see the outline looks kind of cheesy, That's what they do in Yuma, Arizona sometimes.
Uh-oh.
That's Yuma.
About Yuma. No.
All right. So now let's go to our money-saving tip. We covered RV decals, RV Decals Direct, and rvgraphicstore.com. I just want to emphasize that one last time. Now, our money-saving tip today is buying the right product the first time. So, in other words, you're not going to buy a less expensive product and save some money and then wait for it to break a few months later or prematurely, then have to replace it again. If you buy another cheap one, then the same thing's going to happen. So if you buy a more expensive one, usually it's a better quality product. And I think you can tell when you're buying better quality or not. When you're looking at products, let's say online at the Amazon or the Jungle website, you can tell the prices. If something's $3 on one, one brand is $3, the other one's $33, there's something going on there. And not to mention, there's more counterfeit products today than there ever has been before. And some of those you find on the garage sale website. I just saw one recently, and it was very interesting. It was such a disparity in price, so it was not a knockoff. It was a counterfeit.
Wow!
Trying to make it look identical to the brand.
Sheesh. And
it was a Shure microphone, and it was $400 difference in price.
So
and there's no way, and there's tons of them. So, and I did a little research on it. It turns out they're knockoffs. So if you buy it, it'll look just like it until you go to use it. Then you go, oh man, I just got ripped off.
Right.
And anyway, so I'm not going to go on that any longer. But for example, in an RV, if you bought a water pump, let's say you bought it on the Jungle website and it's, $40. That's pretty inexpensive. Now, I've seen brands on there that are inexpensive too, like SureFlow. But, the SureFlow ones sold on Amazon are not the same ones you get in an RV parts store. They don't have the same warranty. They're completely warranted differently, if you can even get a warranty done on it if it failed. But if you buy them in an RV store in the box, they come with a 2-year warranty, and you can handle, and that warranty is very easy to get taken care of. Even the store might do it for you, depending on the age of it. So if you're saving a lot of money on a water pump, it might be because it's a lesser quality, and the internet's flooded with knockoffs and everything else. So like a real SureFlow a flow jet, like I'm going to introduce one today at the RV Envy, one that can freeze, made by Airxcel, which owns the Envision brand, and Suburban and others. So spend the money and get a better quality pump. It's like in our store, we only sell the better quality pumps. We could get some really low quality ones and have a $49 water pump, but it's doing a disservice to our customers. So that's why we don't. So stick with quality. Solar panels could be the same thing. In fact, there's an article on our website about this. It talks about water pumps, solar panels, tires as examples. So if you go to Money Saving Tips on the smartrver.com, you'll be able to find this along with Enjoying the RV Life, the bigger article on RV decals and so forth. So that's just, some direction to go with to help you save some money. And I think it's something most people know, but sometimes it's, I'm going to get the cheaper one now because that's what my budget will afford. And I get that, you got to do what you got to do. But if you can afford the better quality and buy it once, just go ahead and do that and save yourself some grief.
Good tip. So
now we're going to get into staying on the road. And in this section of highway, staying on the road. Hey, I like that.
Hey, there you go.
So we're going to talk about freshwater ready and prepping your RV for summer. Now, a few episodes back, we talked about kind of prepping your whole RV, and I went through the water system, but not as in detail as we're going to today. And it's a nice reminder because this time of year, it's starting to thaw out everywhere. Like here in Montana, we're still having freezing at night, so it's not time to de-winterize your RV yet, but we're getting close. We're just days away. Other parts of the country, it's just, you don't have freezing, but you might store your RV and kind of go through that winterizing process where you drain the water and do some things like that. Other parts of the country, whatever it might be. So this is just a coming out of winter, whether it's winterized like for with RV antifreeze in it or just winterized for winter storage because you're not using the RV. Some nice tips here. So basically, winter's in the rearview mirror. We're not looking at it anymore. It's long gone. So the campgrounds are thawing out if they're not already thawed out, and they're ready for you to come back and hook up your RV and start camping again. And so we're going to talk about that in greater detail so we can get your RV in tip-top shape because we care about your RV. We want you to be happy when you're out there RVing. So it's whether you're hooked up at an RV site or you're running off your pump, or maybe you just got a hose out in a bucket and you're running it through the kitchen window. That's your water source, whatever it is. We're going to walk through that today and kind of help you with this. And the reason why is there's people that don't do any of this stuff. And sometimes you can get away with maybe one winter. You don't do a whole lot of anything afterwards other than just put water in it and go. But it kind of reminds me of a story of somebody I knew.
Jerry?
No, it's not Jerry. But this is right up Jerry's alley.
Oh, Jerry.
So his name was Mike, actually. So it's not any Mikes that we know, and it's not a microphone either.
Okay.
So Mike, he would just hop in his RV after, the winter. He'd just put water in it, in the tank, and he'd go out and dry camping someplace. And so he'd do this year after year and never did any kind of cleaning. He just didn't care. So then he opens up his tap, the first campground he goes to or the first camping weekend, and, the water comes out and it just smelled really nasty. Mm-hmm. It's like drinking swamp water. Who wants to do that? So he didn't sanitize or do anything to prep. So he paid the price. It basically ruined the weekend for him, because they didn't have any water to get anywhere else other than what was already in the RV.
Yikes.
So they dealt with it, for better or worse. They made it work, and that's great, but we don't want to find ourselves in that situation. So we want to avoid that at all costs, and we can do that, and that's why this time of year is so good to do it. So we're going to break this down into steps. Inspecting and cleaning the system, then a little recipe for sanitizing the system, pressure testing on city water, on water pumps. So we're going to walk through this. So first off, you want to inspect your water system, which isn't that hard to do. It's a flashlight, opening up cupboards, looking at all the water lines. But probably more importantly, if you can, check your freshwater tank. And a lot of RVs, you can't do it because they're underneath. They're in the belly. You can't see it, and it's not really worth the time to get to it unless you're doing other maintenance. And hey, why not? And also they're under, they can be under a bed, a bunk, a cabinet someplace. So if you have one like that, it's much easier to check out and see what you have cooking. And freshwater tanks sometimes will, distort. They'll crack eventually. They get dry. They get brittle. Extreme cold, extreme heat causes problems for them. So that's why inspecting is a good thing. So you want to inspect it. Make sure that there's nothing obvious with it. And then when we get into these other steps, you'll find out whether it's leaking or not. So that's a simple thing to do. And a flashlight is great for cabinets and stuff because you got your eyes, it doesn't matter how good your vision is. Sometimes it's hard to see things. Something's shadowed, a fitting might be cracked, or a clamp's coming loose. It's just giving it a nice eyeball and checking it out. Now, with that being said, you're going to want to sanitize your water system. And so the sanitizing can come basically at the same time as pressurizing it and testing the system as well. Because you're not going to sanitize it. Well, to sanitize it, you have to put water in it, run everything, and go through those motions. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. Mm-hmm. At least two birds. Yeah, two birds. We'll stick there. Not three or four. Two birds. All right. That's pretty. I wonder where that came from. Two birds with one stone.
I don't know.
Anyways, as I digress. All right. So to sanitize the system, it's really simple. Now, you can buy something at an RV store. Like Thetford makes a great product for sanitizing freshwater systems. And Camco has some stuff for putting in the freshwater system that cleans it up, but I don't think it's works the same as the Thetford. The Thetford is more of a process you go through. And if you don't want to do that, and I prefer obviously people to buy stuff like that because I have a brick and mortar business and I want to sell parts, right? But I'm going to cheat right now. We're going to give you a little hint on how to do this for less money. And it might just be an easier process. So if you just get some unscented bleach, make sure it's unscented. If you get something with fragrance in it or anything else, you will regret it. So you're talking basic bleach. The stuff that will eat through the bottle after about 4 years of sitting around. I remember a kid, I'd clean out the garage and because I'd made a mess, sawdust everywhere or something. I'd pick up the bottle of bleach and the bottom would just fall out, because our washer and dryers were out in the garage. Kept telling my dad to move them someplace else, but he wouldn't. But anyway, so that's, bleach will do that over time. And it's good to know that because if you buy like a gallon of bleach and it sits around, eventually you're just going to throw it away. Mm-hmm. But make sure it's unscented, and you'd use a 1/4 cup of unscented bleach for every 15 gallons of water. Now you can change that around, do the math, and turn that into 30 gallons, 60 gallons, whatever you want to do. You can Google it and get the formula as well. So there's no secret here. But what makes it kind of nice, most people have a 20 to 40 or 60 gallon tank for their fresh water. So if you just make your mixture in a bucket, a 5 gallon bucket or a 2.5 gallon, whatever floats your boat or whatever you have, you can just pour that water into your freshwater tank, and then you kind of know where you're at. And actually, if you don't know the gallonage of your tank, you can do that, a gallon at a time, or put in 10 gallons, then go a gallon at a time until it maxes out. Then you know where you're at, how many gallons your freshwater tank really is. Because guessing doesn't always float the boat. Mm-hmm. So you do that, you make that mixture, you pour it in the tank, and I would recommend 15 gallons because that's a good amount. You can run your water for quite a bit and flush out those lines and not run out and have to make another batch. So that batch would do it. So what you're going to do is mix that up, pour it in the tank, and then we're going to go to the next step, which would be to pressure test the system. Now, you don't need to use air pressuring like that. That would be crazy, right? Let's just use water. It's a water system. All right, Eric, you're very smart. You're the smart RVer, Eric.
You are.
All right, I like that. So, so if you have a city water hookup, in other words, your house, or if you're an RV park, the pedestal, wherever you're going to get water from a hose to your or to your RV, we're going to call that city water hookup because that's basically what it is. Now, make sure before you hook it up, you have a water pressure regulator that is on the hose bib or the connection where the hose goes, not at your RV, but the hose bib. That's what that thing is called, a hose bib. And you want it there because it'll protect the hose going to your RV. Now, you're going to see a lot of pictures. I mean, tons of pictures with that regulator hanging on the side of the RV. In fact, Camco does that in some of their images, and it's wrong. It's falsely wrong, because that protects the RV, which is great, but it doesn't protect the water hose. You'll want to protect the water hose. You're going to protect the hose and the RV. So make sure you got that water pressure regulator. Unless you just know you have really low water pressure, below 50 PSI, then you don't need one. But most homes and RV parks are above that. RV parks sometimes are closer to 80, 90 PSI. So you want to drive that down. So you're going to hook up the water, and then as you do this, it's kind of a process, and it's a little easier to have two people to do this. And the reason why is you can have one person inside and one person out at the hose bib, turning it on slowly, and one person inside, they're going to open up one faucet. The hot or cold doesn't matter. Cold might be better at this case or at this point in the journey. Open it up. The water starts coming through the line, and you're inside. So if you notice a problem right away, a leak, water starts spraying out somewhere, you can tell the person outside to shut the water off right away. And, if you have phones, you can have them on speakerphone. You can just scream at the other person. Or if you have walkie-talkies or something, you can do that. But I think the phones, be able to scream at one another is better.
Yeah.
You know? It reminds me years ago in San Bernardino, we had a dump station at the store we worked at.
Yeah.
Oh, man, husband and wives backing up the RV, out there screaming at one another. Back up, stop backing up, go forward, go backwards. All right, anyway.
Explicit.
It's hilarious. Waiting for someone to shoot the other person sometimes.
Be done with it.
So anyways, back to the reality here. So you're going to check that out, and you're going to look through the RV, open up the cupboards, and if you're turning on the water, make sure the person inside knows where to look. And always use a flashlight when you're shining under cabinets and such, under sinks, because the water dripping, if it's just a small little drip, the flashlight will catch that. The light will reflect. So it makes it real easy. And then shine it on the floor, follow the water lines, put your hand on them, make sure there's no leaks. All that's good. Then you can turn that water on all the way, and get the air out of the system, open up all your faucets one by one, and check as you do that. Because as you get air out of the system and water starts getting in there, that's where your leak will come. So keep an eye on that. Still have the person outside ready to turn off that water in case you get to that point. Now, if there's no leaks, everything's cool, and that's your hooked up to city water. Now, this next step would be using your water pump, which if you can't use city water, you just do the same thing with your water pump. It's virtually the same thing, other than the water pump has a different line, or, it gets its feeds from the freshwater tank that supplies the RV, where the city water gets its feed from city or your home, whatever, and then it comes into the RV and feeds the rest of it. So you have a couple different lines there that could leak in different ways. So if you've done it the city water way, then you turn on your pump and make sure there's no leaks at the pump or anything like that coming from the freshwater tank. If you've only using your pump, then it's the same thing. Just check for those leaks and so forth. Now, if your water pump doesn't turn on, you don't hear any noise or anything. It just flat doesn't turn on. It could be a blown fuse. The water pump could be bad. Something's gone wrong. And generally it's a blown fuse or the pump is bad. Hey, we were just talking about water pumps. So if you got to buy a new one, buy a good one. Now, if it's, a fuse, you replace the fuse, but fuses typically don't blow unless there's a problem. But, it might have. The water pump sat and the initial startup might pop that fuse the first time, But then once the pump starts running, it's got to get primed. So you're going to hear it making more noise. And then you open up a faucet, and as the air starts getting out of the system, because the pump will introduce air into the system again, it'll spatter and all that. And eventually you get all the water or the air out of the faucets. And sometimes it can take a while. So you want to get all that out, and then the pump will calm down, and it should just turn off after it's satisfied with the pressure in the system. If it continues to run, you have a water leak, you have an air leak, you have something going on. The pump could be failing. The diaphragm inside could have a crack, a split, or something like that. But there's a problem. That pump should shut off eventually and only come back on when you crack one of your faucets open. So check that. Go through the motions there. Get the pump to stop, turn on a faucet, and it should start back up again. And you're going to want to do the same thing on the hot water too. Make sure all that water gets circulating through the water heater, all the air out of the system. Is he falling asleep over there?
He really is.
You know, we have Steven Spielberg come in who runs the video here, and he's dozing off over in the corner. This is getting bad. Oh man. It's been a long day. Okay, anyways, these people don't want to hear all this. All right, so that's a pretty simple thing, and I think a lot of our RVers know that drill. But if you're new to it, that water pump can be a funky little thing sometimes because they don't work, they don't prime sometimes. You got to help get water into it. Getting the air out of the system can take a while, and it might throw you off thinking you got a real problem there, but you don't. It's just sometimes it takes, like my RV, it takes a while to get the air out of the system. It's kind of an annoyance. Okay, so now we've done that. You've pressure tested it. You got the air out of the system. There's no leaks anywhere. You've looked at all the lines, and let's just say there was a leak. Most water leaks in an RV are easy to fix.
That's good.
Unless you can't reach it.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes in the infinite wisdom of these engineers that draw these plans, they'll put a fitting someplace where you got to have an arm that's 25 feet long, you know?
And skinny.
Or a drain valve or something. I remember one RV we had here, the drain valves were in the bathroom cabinet, and you had to lay on the floor, partially in the hallway, stick your arm down this cabinet, and you could barely get to them. So if you had to replace anything, you'd actually have to take the cabinet apart.
Jeez.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean, you know, if you can get to it. But normally they're easy to fix, and most RV stores have the parts in stock. And if you have one of our water fitting kits that we sell on sunpromfg.com, then you'd already have the fittings because we got the most awesome kits there is. Ready to go.
We do.
Okay, now we're going to move on to step 4. Having filters for your RV. Because, you know, you do all this work and you don't want to run bad water through your system. And it happens. A lot of campgrounds just have sketchy water, horrible water that tastes like sulfur, mud, dirt, all sorts of stuff. And you know, even with the filter, some of that stuff might get through. But if you don't have a filter, let's say you went to a place and the water tasted like sulfur. When you get home, you want to, or even when you leave there if you can, sometime soon, flush that water out.
Yeah.
Because that'll kind of embed itself into the water heater and the lines, and it might become a real chore to get rid of it later. So don't let that happen. That sounds like something Mike would do.
Yeah.
You know? Uh-huh. Well, this water's nasty. I like it.
Gross.
So filters can solve that problem. And you should just have a filter no matter what, especially if you go to RV parks. You never know what you're going to get. And you can get simple filters that are in line. Camco has them. They're blue. They work absolutely wonderful. And there's other people out there that make some that claim they're, you know, a million times better than a Camco. I don't think you'd ever know the difference.
Nope.
So who cares? Yeah. Just get the Camco ones. You know, you got a decent filter. They're in line. You use it for the season. If you're, you know, just casually RVing, you throw it away and buy a new one next year. If you're using your RV a lot, you know, or living in it, you might be 2 or 3 months on it. But, you know, it's worth the money.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not going to throw a price out there because they have singles, they have double packs and so forth, but they're great filters. And, you know, Volterra makes them too. Everybody has them.
Yeah.
But, you know, we just kind of whittled it down to Camco because it's kind of the best. I shouldn't say the best, but it works really well.
It does.
And then if you want to go beyond that, you can get a single canister, dual canister, triple canister system where it, you know, you got 3 filters that the water works its way through, and it, you know, the first filter gets rid of all the bigger stuff, the rocks and boulders. The second filter gets the other kind of stuff. The third filter gets it down to the nitty gritty, you know, where nothing's getting through there. None of those dangerous bacterias and whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, those words, big words. Bigger than I can say. So, filters are reasonably priced. So I kind of like the bigger ones, the canisters, because you can replace the filter.
Yeah,
and that's a
nice.
cheaper way to go over the long haul. Mm-hmm. Especially if you do a lot of RVing or you go to a lot of crummy RV parks or places where water's just nasty.
Yeah.
Then it's definitely worth the money.
Yes.
So those are some pretty simple things to do. And, checking out your water system now is the time to do it because, you go through a winter, one season, and it can leave scars in the water system.
Yeah.
And it's always a nightmare when you're out on the road or at a campground and the water starts leaking, especially someplace where there's no parts available. Mm-hmm. Then you're trying to makeshift something. Your kids are screaming at you, Dad, where's the water, So we want to make that so everybody's the happy RVer, the smart happy RVer, right?
That's right.
So it's a great time to do it now. And now if we go back to Mike, good old Mike. So he actually ended up sanitizing his system. And, that cleaned out the mess. It got it back on track for him. It took a little bit more than what he wanted to do, but got the system cleaned out. And there you go. Now he's happy as can be. So he became the smart RVer, but he learned it the hard way. So we want to be the smarter RVer and do it now and stay ahead of it. So we want to stay ahead of the maintenance and learn from others' mistakes, not ours.
Yeah, that's true.
And sometimes it costs a few bucks to be ahead of it, but it's well worth it. Mm-hmm. So again, all this information is going to be on our website, thesmartrver.com, under do-it-yourself articles. Now, moving right along, that brings us to the next stop. And we're going to go to Pennsylvania, Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Yes, we are.
Now, so you have Hershey chocolate, Hershey, Pennsylvania,
yeah,
right?
I've always wanted to go there.
Then you have Pennzoil from Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Now you have Allentown with all the Allens.
Yeah, the Allens. Yeah. All the Allens live there. That's nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, Alexis, now quit lying to us about the Allens living there. And why don't you tell us some truth about Allentown, PA?
That sounds good, my avid Next Stop listeners. Here's an ode to Allentown. Eric, did you know Allentown famously hid the Liberty Bell in its church during the war to hide it from the British?
I didn't know that.
How rad is that?
Pretty amazing.
Pretty brave, to be honest. And that's just one of the factoids that makes this place very unique and very worth traveling to. They also have a museum that has a collection of over 13,000 art pieces. I thought that was a lot. That would take you a whole weekend just to get through, I would think. And they're pieces from various cultures and different periods of time. So it's a really extensive museum. Pretty neat. You got to check it out.
So we could probably get them to display my Radio Arizona RV pen, right?
I think they would. Talk to the head Alan.
Talk to him, yeah. The curator.
He runs that place.
Head Alan.
All right. They also have a really, really popular farmers market there that, as far as I could tell, was open all year round at the fairgrounds. And it's open from Thursday to Saturday every weekend. They have a lot of fresh, ready-made food. So if you're looking for that locally sourced, really good, probably organic food, that is a good option. And they have things, that you're going to want, probably honey, all the good stuff they have at farmers markets. And of course, we always talk about food, and this is no exception. We've got a lot of options for restaurants in Allentown, Pennsylvania. One very mentionable one is Union and Finch. I really like that name to start with. But the menu offers things like really amazing burgers, salads, and they have brunch, a hearty brunch on the weekends. So that sounds good to me right now. So this is really an opportunity for you RVers to get a taste of the local cuisine. And as far as RV parks go, we've got some top ones, really well equipped with lots of amenities. We've got Allentown KOA, Quakers Woods Campground, and Stony Brook RV Resort. So a couple options for you RVers out there. Check them out. So any final thoughts, Eric? Maybe about a certain service center?
That's right. I actually had two thoughts. One, it seems like a lot of stuff from Civil War era, and on the East Coast has two names. What was the name of that place to eat? Something in Finch?
Yeah.
Seems like they're all like two names.
Union and Finch.
Union and Finch.
The
And everything always has a union in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so that's kind of cool. That tells you where you're at.
I love it.
So also in Allentown, Pennsylvania, there's an RV store named Stearns RV. So if you're there and you happen to have a problem with your RV, they have parts and service. They're not a dealership.
Don't say it.
It's
a good thing, right? So you can trust me.
I'm not going to say it. Okay. I say it too much. But anyways, they don't sell RVs. And I emphasize that they don't sell RVs, but they sell parts and service. Yes. And if you go there, talk to Mark. He's the man. He will help you with any problems you have.
Yeah.
Just spoke to him the other day. Great guy. So you can talk to him. There's other places there too. Don't get me wrong. He's not the only guy in town.
Right.
But he is someone we've spoke to, and he's there. He's ready to help you.
Great.
And his information will be on our website, along with this other information about the next stop on the smartrver.com. Yes. Okay, so now that takes us to our next place, which is Centralia, PA, Pennsylvania. So I like this Centralia. This is a very unique place.
It is, truly.
When we were doing this, that sounds familiar, and I know I've heard about it somewhere in my life. Okay. But this kind of it's very interesting. So I'm going to read this story. It's another one we found. Great Grandpappy Popeye gave to us quite a long time ago.
Good guy.
It's in the book of stories.
Okay.
All right. So this is about Centralia, the last ember of Centralia. In the heart of Pennsylvania coal country, Centralia once hummed with life. Rows of modest homes lined its streets. Kids played in the yards, and miners trudged home with soot-stained faces. But beneath the town, a secret smoldered, something no one saw coming until it was too late. It started in May 1962. The town council, eager to tidy up for Memorial Day, hired volunteers to burn trash in an old strip mine pit. A routine chore, they thought. But the fire found a coal seam, a vein of black fuel threading deep into the earth. It caught, and it wouldn't let go. The flame sank below, out of reach, gnawing at the roots of Centralia like a hungry ghost. At first, no one panicked. Smoke whisked up through the cracks in the ground, a curiosity more than a threat. Kids dared each other to poke sticks into the streaming fissures. But then the ground grew hot. Basements filled with choking fumes. A gas station owner found his fuel tank simmering at 172 degrees. In 1981, the earth swallowed a boy, 12-year-old Tom Domboski, when a sinkhole yawned open beneath him. He survived, clinging to roots, but the town's fate was sealed. The government stepped in, offering buyouts. Families packed up, leaving toys in the yards and dishes in the sinks. By the 1990s, Centralia was a ghost town, its streets empty save for the graffiti artists and thrill seekers drawn to the apocalypse of it all. The fire, though, didn't care. It kept burning, a slow, relentless beast, fueled by the coal that could last 250 years. Today, Centralia is a whisper of what it was. Route 61, once a lifeline, lies cracked and rerouted, its abandoned stretch painted with fading skulls and curses. A handful of holdouts, 5 souls as of the last count, cling to their homes, defiant against the smoke and the silence. Steam still rises from the hills, curling like spirits into the gray sky. The church on the ridge, once a beacon, stands alone, its pews long gone. They say the fire talks if you listen close. A low hiss, a rumble, a warning. Some swear they've seen shadows moving in the haze. Miners who never made it out, tethered to the blaze. Centralia isn't just dying, it's being consumed, inch by inch. A town erased by its own heartbeat. And down below, the embers glow on, patient, eternal, waiting for the day the last light fades. Wow, what a place.
Right?
That's pretty cool.
It is.
Or interesting, ever how you want to look at that.
Unlike anything else I've ever read about.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's like, the coal, just that thing,
How
normal
crazy.
chore, and all of a sudden your town's on fire, but you can't put it out.
Nope. Still can't. Still going.
That
It's
would
pretty
suck.
crazy. Yeah.
But, I like where, the government stepped in. That's probably where it all went wrong. They probably
Always how it goes in the movies anyway.
They probably could have saved the town. That's why everybody packed up and left.
Yeah.
The government, we're here. We can help you.
Oh, thanks.
All right. I'm going to stop on that one, right?
All right.
All right. So now that's going to bring us to RV Envy, and we're going to talk about water pumps again. So what's really cool is Eric Sell, who owns a division called Envision. Hey, I'm a poet and I don't know it.
Yeah, you are.
So Eric Sell also makes Suburban and other product lines, Coleman air conditioner. So it's a well-known company. And I think for the most part, they make really quality products, so they have this water pump, this Envision line, and it looks identical to a SureFlow pump. You guys can't see this, but I'm holding up two pumps. Well, unless you're watching this on YouTube, but there's two water pumps, a SureFlow and an Envision. They look identical.
They do.
I mean, same size, physical shape. The footprint's the same, so they go in the same screw holes if you replace a SureFlow with the Envision. Nice. So the Envision is a 3 gallon per minute, but it actually rates at like 3.3 or something like that. So it's a little higher than what the SureFlow 2.8 is, or 3 gallon.
Nice.
It was 2.8, now it's 3 gallon. A little better that way. But what really makes this water pump cool is that it can freeze. Most water pumps, when they freeze, they crack open. You can't use them. Sometimes they'll survive a freeze, but, they might die a few weeks later, a month later or something as you're using it. But the Envision can withstand a freeze. Now, I'm not going to say that you want to go freeze your RV or let it freeze, just to test it out. But if you didn't winterize it in time, or you got caught off guard, you're traveling someplace and, the cold weather made your water system freeze, well, you don't have to worry about it. The thing will thaw out and continue to work. And that's pretty darn cool. And what's even better is the price is not over the top. It's actually less than the SureFlow pump. But it's not so much less that it throws in that category of garbage water pumps.
Well, there we go.
It doesn't do that. It's still priced as a quality pump.
Good.
So for you out there, if you're interested in one of these water pumps, we have them on our website, sunpromfg.com. And there'll be a link to it in the description of this podcast. And there's going to be a promo code, which is FREEZE. And if you use that promo code, you'll get 10% off until April 16th. So you can buy it and try it, and you'll absolutely love it. And the price will be reduced. I don't know what the price is right now, so I'm not throwing out a price, but it's going to be better than what you're going to get it probably anywhere else.
Awesome.
For the same water pump. Apples to apples, right? Okay. So now I think we're all done with water.
All right.
Right? We're all getting kind of tired here, talking about water, sick of water. All right. So now anyway, now you guys got some things to do, some places to go to the website. You can check things out, save some money today. And I also want to say, our last episode, 173, I mentioned propane lines, and I mentioned a discount on our SunPro website. And if you went there, I apologize. We forgot to set that up.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a link in the description of the podcast. There is one now. So if you went there and there was nothing there, I'm sorry. And if you want the propane lines we talked about, which are the ones we make, you can go there right now and get them. We're going to keep them on there for a while just because of that, just so you know that. And we'll actually have a link in the description of this podcast as well.
Yes.
We'll try to make up for that.
Yeah.
All right. So we had a great episode today. Did you learn anything, Alexis?
I learned a lot.
Are you smarter
water.
now?
I am.
Okay,
I
good.
think.
God, too bad the people in Centralia didn't have an RV filled with water. That might not have worked.
That's so sad.
Or a SureFlow water pump.
Hey.
All right, so we had a lot of great information today. Like always, we're trying to make everybody's RVing a much more enjoyable a part of their life to enjoy that RV lifestyle, but doing it smarter and becoming the smart RVer so you don't have all the problems and headaches that everybody who doesn't listen to this podcast has. This is the place to learn. So I want to thank everybody for coming by today, and thanks for listening and sharing the podcast with all your family, friends, and everybody else you know. We want to make this podcast the #1 in the world for RV smarts. So this is Eric Stark with the Smart RVer Podcast, your go-to guide for the smarter RVing and unforgettable adventures on the open road. So never stop enjoying the RV life.